You live in Trump's America right now, ladies and gentlemen, and you made it through another week. So before we even begin, I think that you should congratulate yourselves. Give yourselves a round of applause. Seriously, you made it through another week in Trump's America. You're not in jail. You're not dead. You owe a congratulations to yourself. Before we go any further, just give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. A couple of brief announcements as we get started. So a few years back, when we started this show, 4 years ago now, I can't believe the time has gone this fast, but 4 years ago now, we started The Chamber. And when The Chamber first started, The Chamber was a call-in show as well as me sitting here running my mouth. And then you guys know I got into, some beef with TMZ and some other news outlets. And too many people started calling in wanting to talk to me about that. And that's not what this show is about. So we cut the call-in line and we replaced it with Fan Mail Friday so that you guys could still have your opinions heard, but we could filter out a lot of the dumb stuff. Well, I think that our audience has matured. I think sufficient time has passed between that and today. So everybody that is tuned in on Facebook Live or YouTube or any of our other live streaming services, you guys will see that at the bottom of your screen down there, it says you can now call in. You got to call in via Skype. I want you to call in via Skype, and there's a reason why. And I'll get to that probably closer to the end of the show. But you got to call in via Skype, and you can call in with the Skype name, The Chamber Radio Show. Once again, that's The Chamber Radio Show. And you can call in anytime and you get directly on air with your man Andre Roxx. There's no wait time. There's no call screeners. Excuse me. I don't do call screeners because I don't believe in people. See, there's a lot of radio hosts out there that will screen calls, and they'll only let calls in from people that disagree with them if they're not too bright. No, I want people that disagree with me to call into this show, and I want some intelligent people to call in. Let's talk. I have no problem with somebody talking to me that has some brains. And heck, you might even change my mind on a few things. I doubt it, but you might even change my mind on a few things. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today is the first day that call-ins are going to happen. I encourage everybody to call in, and we are going to have a great show. We got a lot to talk about. It still is Fan Mail Friday, so we're reading your fan mail live. But before we start reading all this live fan mail, we're going to go to the greatest theme song in radio history, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I got to start this off. I know it's Fan Mail Friday, and we're going to get to some of your fan mail. Please don't be discouraged by the fact that I'm not touching the fan mail right away. But something happened that I have to speak on. I can't let this slide. Yesterday, on Fox and Friends and a few other stations, Donald Trump made a comment. He said that he believes that people who shoot police officers should be put to death. I know that's a popular sentiment across the country. But you guys know me. I mean, let's be honest here. The show that I did that had the most controversy, had the most responses, was when I did the show titled Shoot the Damn Cops. Now, why do I believe that we should shoot the damn cops? I know that a lot of people are like, oh my God, what is he saying? I want you to think about this for a minute. What other recourse do black people have? What other recourse do oppressed people in this nation have? I'm going to try to be calm about this. It's not my strong suit. Me being calm does not work out well. But I want to explain this calmly so that maybe you'll get what I'm saying rather than just hearing the elevated and heightened emotion. If we're going to start putting people to death for killing police officers, then we have to take care of the police officers killing us. Right now in the United States of America, blacks are afraid. Latinos are afraid of police officers. And these issues have been going on for centuries. They have been coming into our neighborhoods. They have been brutalizing us. They have been murdering us. And no one holds them accountable. A cop kills a young black kid. 9 times out of 10, he walks. 9 times out of 10, he's not even taken to trial. And for that 1 time out of 10 where he is taken to trial, 9 times out of those 10, he walks. The worst we usually see is a 2 or 3 day suspension while they investigate the situation. And that suspension is with pay. They send the cop on vacation. So there's no recourse when a police officer acts insane. I've seen estimates as high as 95% of complaints that get filed against a police officer end up in a trash can and don't even end up in their jacket. So what's the recourse? If we can't go to the courts, we've been begging the legislatures for years to do something about it. How else do we protect ourselves except for when a police officer becomes physical, for us to meet that physical force with physical force? How else are we supposed to do it? I told you guys before, I'm open. I am open to any other recourse. But that recourse needs to have some very specific goals. You have to tell me, in the situation where a police officer is determined to end the life of someone, give me a nonviolent option for that person to remain on this side of the dirt. You can say, oh, well, you know, they can petition their legislatures and report the cops. How does, number one, even if that was effective, which it's not, how does that keep somebody living? You guys, if you're tuned in on my YouTube channel, scroll through my YouTube channel. There was a video that I did a few months back where I called the police department that murdered, and yes, I'm calling it a murder, Amantic Bradford. And for those of you that don't remember that story, we're coming up on our first break. So for those of you that don't remember that story, we will get to that after the break. If you are tuned in on our radio stream, so if you're just listening to the audio, we're going to go to a little bit of Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. If you're tuned in on our video feed, so our Facebook Live, all of that, We are going to go to a word from our sponsors. Either way, we'll be right back here on the Chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. My YouTube's not streaming.
I thought Kenny was on the YouTube.
Is he?
Let me go ask him again. Yeah, he was on it.
Oh, thank you, baby.
Hey,
Yeah. But it's streaming though, right?
it is. Just no sound.
Okay.
We hear you clicking.
And he's never seen this. Yes, yes, y'all. That is Stevie Wonder, Sir Duke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio. That's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuned in on our video stream, I want to apologize. I know that we're having some technical issues with getting the sound to play for our commercial breaks. Bear with us. Listen, we're running all new software today, and it is, it's new. It's new. And yeah, we're having some problems. So you're going to have to bear with us today. We will get that all fixed. But one thing we do have up and running is our Skype. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can call in and comment at any time. All you have to do is hit the Skype and go to the Chamber Radio Show. Call in and we will discuss anything live here on air. Let's get back to Trump's statements. He says that people should be executed who kill police officers. Now, that's all well and good. You know, I can understand that argument. I don't agree, but I can understand that argument. But then, shouldn't what's good for the goose be good for the gander? If a police officer is caught shooting a civilian, who's supposed to be held to a higher standard? Should the civilian killing the cop be held to a higher standard than the cop killing the civilian? I mean, we see it every day. We see these cops beating people. We see these cops harming people. We see these cops murdering people. We've got, the list goes on and on. Amantic Bradford, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, a little bit different situation. But Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Alton Sterling. Come on, we can keep this thing going all day long. So why is it that Trump is not calling for police officers who unnecessarily kill civilians to be killed as well? Aren't they held to a higher standard than we are? These people are trained to deal with life and death situations. We're not. So, I want to get back to this phone call I made to the police department that killed Amantic Bradford. And this was very important to me because for those of you that don't remember the story, Amantic Bradford was at a mass shooting. And Amantic Bradford, by all accounts, was a hero. He was a military, he was currently enlisted in the military. And by that, he had his service pistol on him. And when a nut job came into a mall that he happened to be at and started shooting, he did what the NRA and the Republicans all scream that people should do. He pulled his weapon, ready to kill the person who was causing danger and harm to befall the people around him. Isn't that what the NRA said? This is what we need guns for? Good guys with guns stop bad guys with guns. Isn't that what the NRA keeps saying? So when the cops arrive on scene, before ascertaining the situation, they see young black man, 19 years old, with a gun, shoot him. Amantic Bradford was shot and killed while ushering people away from the gunfire and protecting them. So I called the police department and I asked them a simple question. And you guys who are tuned in on my YouTube feed, please go look at that call. I'll put it up on my Facebook on our next musical break so that so that you guys can see that as well. But I made that call and I asked the police officers a very simple question to which I was hung up on twice. Yeah. Your man Andre Roxx is a jerk. I'll call back. I asked them, I said, in a situation where I am legally carrying my firearm and police begin to shoot at me and I am breaking no laws, what is my recourse to protect myself from dying? How they always say, oh, well, there's a peaceful solution to it. Okay, the cops are shooting at me, right? The cops are shooting at me. How do I protect myself from death without shooting back? Should I shoot back in order to keep myself alive? So let's say Amantic Bradford had shot back at the cops. Now remember, he was doing nothing wrong. He was trying to save people, which is more than can be said for a lot of people. So if he would have shot those cops back, would you be calling for his death? See, I advocate for self-defense against police officers. I know a lot of people get mad at me when I say shoot the damn cops, but I also tell you guys, I am not looking to kill any innocent people. But I have seen in my life, you all have seen in your life, you've seen on YouTube, you've seen these cops get out of control. And when a police officer gets out of control, it's almost expected that we cower in fear. Nobody is saying hit the cop back. Nobody is saying shoot the cop back. Meanwhile, people are getting shot, people are dying. And when I say, wait a minute, I don't give a damn if he's got a badge on and he went through some academy, that's a man just like me. And if any man attacks me, I am well within my rights. I am well within my legal rights. I am well within my moral rights and whatever other kind of rights you want to say. I am well within my rights to defend myself and use up to and including deadly force to protect myself and keep myself alive. But you and I both know that no matter what happens, if I kill a cop, the law is going to find me guilty. A cop could have a gun to my head for no reason. Now I'm going to tell you straight up, and I'll tell all you police officers out there, because I know some of y'all watch my show. I know you do because I've seen you guys comment on it. I've run into cops on the street who have commented on my show. I'll tell all you cops out here right now, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I will stand in front of a courtroom before I lay in a coffin. You put a gun to my head, I will blow your head off. Yeah, I said it. So what am I supposed to do in that situation? Cower in fear until I'm dead? Come on, Donnie. Hold these fools accountable too. If that's what you want to do, you want to say, oh, all of the rhetoric, the anti-police rhetoric, okay, turn the tables and say, you know what? Let's resolve both of the issues. You don't want guys like Andre Roxx advocating for people to use deadly force against police officers. Tell the cops to stop using deadly force against us. We just saw a couple of days ago a pregnant woman shot 5 times in the back. What am I supposed to tell my people when they see that? Hold a candlelight vigil? Get some picket signs? Sing another chorus of We Shall Overcome? No! I'm going to tell my people that since the courts won't protect us, since the legislators won't protect us, since the cops won't protect us, we have to protect ourselves. So I say, shoot the damn cops. I'm going to tell you something right now. Had I been there when that young woman was assaulted and murdered by that police officer, you better believe that that officer would be standing in front of St. Peter right along with that woman. And I'm going to say something else to my brothers and sisters out there. Stop standing around with video cameras yelling at the cops. That's so wrong, man. Hey, chill out, man. Yo, there's 5 or 6 of y'all standing around. Whoop that cop's behind. That's nothing but a man or a woman. That badge did not give them some superpowers that keep them from getting a behind whooping. And use up to and including deadly force to protect your people. It is ridiculous that we're expected to die and then maybe our death can get an apology. You want to deal with something, Don? Deal with it. This is the problem with America. You don't want to deal with the reason that America wants to deal with the problem, but they don't want to deal with the reason that the problem exists. You want to try and chop down the tree by the branches instead of attacking the root. Why? Because the root of the problem means that you have to do some self-examination. As a nation, you have to do some self-examination. What is causing blacks and Latinos, and for that matter, anybody, to hate the police? Could it be that we're constantly harassed and brutalized by the cops and we have no recourse? Could it possibly be that? Could it be that America's policy for centuries now has been what the police say goes, regardless of your constitutional rights, regardless of your basic human rights? Even if the police say you don't exist on this planet anymore. I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I will give no man or woman that type of authority over my life. So I tell you now, Donald Trump, if I'm in a position where my life, the life of one of my loved ones is in danger, or the life of a member of my community is in danger, I will use any force necessary, including deadly force, to protect my own. And we'll let the courts decide whether I'm guilty or innocent. But if they do decide to execute me, you better believe I'm going to my grave with the knowledge that I did the right thing. Stop police from murdering our people. Stop police from murdering, period. Put some stringent laws on the police. And maybe I'll change my tune. But you're so concerned about protecting the people that are supposed to be protecting us, while those people basically have free reign to do absolutely anything they want, including taking people's lives. I say to hell with your declaration. It's time for our musical break. And if you're, once again, you can call in anytime. I know you guys aren't used to calling into the show, so I don't expect too many calls today. But you guys can call in anytime via Skype. All you got to do is go to Skype named The Chamber Radio Show, find it, and go ahead and dial in. Your calls get straight on the air with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take you guys to a little bit of George Clinton. We'll be right back here on the chamber. Oh, if you're tuned in on the live stream, we're going to go to a break by our sponsors. I do apologize if the sound does not play. Please bear with us. We're trying to get it all together. Either way, we'll be right back here on the chamber. Stay tuned. Yes, yes, y'all. That's She's a Bad Mama Jamma by Carl Carlton. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I'm going to get off of Trump. I just wanted to speak on that real quick. It is Fan Mail Friday, so I'm not going to take up all of your time talking about this nut job who somehow finagled his way into the White House, because we got some of your fan mail to read live here on air. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to call into the show and speak directly to me live on air here, you can call in via Skype. By going to The Chamber Radio Show. That's The Chamber Radio Show. It's at the bottom of your screen if you're tuned in on our Facebook live feed or one of our live feeds. So go ahead and check us out, and you get live on air with me. Would love to hear your opinions on this. Anyway, let's get to some of your fan mail. Now, this person responds to me on the statements I made on reparations. And I think this is interesting because it is such an easy situation to talk about. Like, it really is. Like, there really is no argument that holds water when it comes to reparations. There's no argument that holds water against reparations. There really isn't. Especially considering that the United States of America has already set precedent by paying the Japanese as well as giving the Native Americans free reign over their land. There's really no argument that holds water. Really, we shouldn't be talking about reparations in the sense of should they be given or shouldn't they be given. We should be talking about, at best, what form they should be given in. But anyway, I made the statement about reparations because we got a few political candidates that we're talking about it now. And this person, by the way, for those of you that are new to the show, I never reveal names when we talk about Fan Mail Friday, and the reason I don't do that is because, I don't want people going out there getting attacked and things like that. That's not the point of Fan Mail Friday. The point of Fan Mail Friday is so that we have a free forum and a free exchange of ideas where you can speak freely and you feel free to disagree with me. Anyway, this person said, should the Irish get reparations? They were enslaved. What about the Jews from Germany? Slavery, as ugly as it is a human condition that has been going on since time began, and the logistics of granting reparations to every group that has been enslaved would bankrupt every nation in the world. Where do I begin with this foolish statement? Let's start with, should the Irish get reparations? They were enslaved. Stop it! Stop it with the Irish were slaves too crap. It is not true. This revisionist history is absolutely asinine. Let me explain what happened with the Irish and where people are getting this foolish, idiotic concept. Many Irish, especially in the late 1700s, early 1800s, well, actually till the late 1800s, wanted to come to America. There were all kinds of things going on, everything from a potato famine. Well, actually, the potato famine came a little bit later, but there were a lot of things going on in Ireland that made it undesirable and unattractive to live there. Now, of course, many Irish did not have the finances to come to the United States of America on their own. So what did they do? They made deals with people who were either already here or had some sort of interest here, business interest or something like that, to come to the United States of America. Point blank. Now, the deal that they made was very simple. They said, hey, listen, check this out. We'll pay your way to come to the United States of America. In exchange, since you don't have any money, you owe me a certain amount of work. Now, when you get here, you're going to do that work for a period of 5, 7 years, whatever. And when you're free, when you are finished, when you have completed that amount of work, I will free you. You'll be free, and your debt will be paid and all of that. This is no different than, let's say, my son hits a baseball through somebody's window. And he says, hey, listen, come clean my gutters every day for a month and we'll call it even. And I send my son to go clean his gutters every day for a month. That's no different. My son owed a debt and he paid that debt. We do this all the time in America. If you owe a debt, you pay that debt. And sometimes people are willing to exchange work for debt payment. That was how the Irish were indentured here in the United States of America. Let's be clear about the difference between chattel slavery and Irish indentured servitude. Chattel slavery. Blacks were kidnapped from their land. They were brought here in chains, in shackles. When they arrived here in the United States of America, they were not given the status of citizen or even human being. They were given the status of livestock and property. Their children were enslaved for life. They were enslaved for life. There was no debt to work off. Your status, your permanent status here in the United States of America was property. And blacks were treated as such. They had no better status than a chicken or a horse. And they were treated as such. Irish indentured servants, their wives were not indentured. Their children were not born into a status of indentured servitude. They had legal rights. Their debtors could not do certain things to them, like beat them or, rape their wives or things like that. They had they were respected under the law as human beings. Now, that being said, were there atrocities that happened? Of course. Of course. I'm not going to sit here and BS you and say that they were not worked hard and probably harder than the debt that they owed. I'm not going to tell you that their working conditions weren't horrendous. But they enjoyed the status of being considered a human being. They also enjoyed the status of at some point their servitude would be over and they would be considered citizens of a country. So please stop with that whole Irish were enslaved too. Moving on, you say, should the Jews get reparations? They did. After 1947, they were given not just money, they were given a country. Oh, do we forget history? There's a country now called Israel. Established in what, 1948? 47, 48, I can't remember the exact year. But it was established as a direct result of World War II. They were given a country. They were given reparations. They were given a nation. Come on, guys. You say slavery, as ugly as it is a human condition that has been going on since the beginning of time and the logistics of granting reparations to every group that has been enslaved would bankrupt every nation. What time is it? Let me address the first part of that sentence. At no time in history has any nation practiced such a horrendous form of slavery. I think that the problem is we have too broad of a definition of slavery. The only documented time that human beings were considered under the law to be property was the African enslavement here in the United States of America. That was the only time. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, what about the Jewish enslavement in Egypt? That's questionable. Because there is no documentation other than in what we call either the Bible or the Torah that actually happened. And there is quite a bit of evidence to dispute, or at least to show that was probably an exaggeration. But even with that, even the biblical accounts show that the slaves were considered human beings. Their religion was even respected. Their religious holidays were even respected. That's according to the Bible. There has been no practice of chattel slavery worse than what took place in the Americas. Period. Period. And we're not going to play otherwise. I will not let you revise history like that. When we come back from our top of the hour break, I want to talk about the second part of this letter, which you say the logistics of granting reparations to every group that has been enslaved would bankrupt every nation in the world. I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about that from a moral standpoint. But right now we're going to go to LTD Love Ballad. If you're tuned in on our radio stream, if you're tuned in on our video stream, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back here on The Chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. Yes, yes, y'all. That is Teddy Pendergrass, Love TKO. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. Listen, I know you guys are not used to it because we have not done call-ins on this show in about 3 years. So I know you're not used to it. But ladies and gentlemen, the call-in lines are now open. But you got to call in through Skype. We'll go ahead and get the phone line set up sometime next week. But right now, you got to call in through Skype. The call-in Skype name is The Chamber Radio Show. If you're tuned in on our live stream, it's right down there at the bottom of your screen. The Chamber Radio Show. It's Fan Mail Friday. Let's get back to the fan letter. The last statement he made on here was that the logistics of granting reparations to every group that has been enslaved would bankrupt any nation in the world. I want to talk about this for a minute. First of all, it's time to acknowledge that the United States of America owes reparations to the African Americans. No, let me rephrase that. Africans in America. The reason I say Africans in America is because until we are respected, until we are treated like citizens of this nation, I cannot, in good conscience, make the statement that I am an American. I am an African who just happens to be in America. That being said, let's back up, because I think the first thing that I need to do is restate my position on why reparations is owed. It's very simple. If you did a job for me and I chose not to pay you, you could take me to court and you would win lost wages. If that proceeding took a significant amount of time, you would also win interest for the lost wages that you sued for. So, Africans in America performed 246 years of free labor. We built a nation, and we were not paid for it. That money is owed. And I know a lot of you are going to say, but you were never a slave. Okay, check this out. The United States of America recognizes and holds very dearly the concept of inheritance. This is why we have so many probate laws and things like that. There are lawyers fighting in court right now. As a matter of fact, the President of the United States hopped on this idea of death taxes and all of that because they recognize the importance of inheritance. Now, I want you guys to understand something here. My great-great-grandfather was a slave. My great-grandmother, his daughter, was alive until 2008. So I am not that far removed from slavery. Now, had he been paid for his work, he would have been able to either directly or indirectly pass that wealth down to his daughter, which would have filtered either directly or indirectly to me. Period. Either directly through saving up his money and things like that, or indirectly through, let's say he bought some property and then he used the equity in that property to send my great-grandmother to college, or for that matter, she never got to finish high school because she had to work. That college degree put her in a different position financially, and so on and so on, and it filters down to me. That's called generational wealth. because the United States of America, and yes, I'm putting the blame on the nation, not the slave, well, yes, on the slaveholders too, but not to the same degree, and I'll explain why in a minute. The United States of America created the conditions where I was not able to receive that generational wealth by creating the laws and putting the laws into play that restricted my great-great-grandfather from receiving those finances. So the United States of America is ultimately culpable for those lost wages. Now, I do put a lot of blame on the slave owners because there is still a morality to owning people. But I do recognize that they were businessmen and women. And being a businessman or a businesswoman, you're going to exploit any law possible to turn a profit. So I can only be but so mad. I have to be mad at the people who created the laws, who created the conditions that caused me to lose that generational wealth. So 246 years of unpaid wages. And you say, well, why should you get it? Listen, the United States of America recognizes kinship when it comes to wage disputes. In other words, let's say my father got into a wage dispute with his employer. Now, if he brought suit against his employer, and during the proceedings, he passed away, I, as his next of kin, could continue that lawsuit. As his surviving next of kin, I could continue and seek those wages. That being said, I am my great-great-grandfather's surviving next of kin. There are lost wages that have not been paid. And 246 years, oh, I'm sorry, let me back that up. 154 years of unpaid interest. Very simple. So now that I've stated my case for reparations, and I think that I've stated my case well, let's talk about the fact that, as you say, granting reparations would bankrupt every nation in the world. If I went to court right now, let's say somebody sued me for making a libelous claim here on the chamber, and I was found guilty of making that libelous claim, and they sued me for, let's say, $100,000, and that would bankrupt me. The courts would not reduce my liability simply because it would put me in a bad financial situation. So why should I take that into consideration when we're talking about the United States of America? They are culpable for the crime. They are culpable for the civil matter. So I could give a damn if them paying what they owe would bankrupt the nation. And to be honest, the United States of America has shown no remorse for that situation. As a matter of fact, they've shown contempt for the fact that they had to free the slaves. What happened in the United States of America since then? Well, we went through another 99 years where they said, hey, we're still not going to let you be citizens. We're going to restrict you at every turn. It was called Jim Crow. We went through another 103 years. Had to do the math real quick. Before we could get equal housing, the way that Americans build their wealth. We went through another 133 years before we actually got equal housing, because even after the Fair Housing Act was signed, there were no enforcement measures put into play for another 30 years after that. We've been incarcerated at a disproportionate rate. We've been killed by police officers at a disproportionate rate. We've been restricted from jobs at a disproportionate rate. We've been restricted from the economy at a disproportionate rate. We're still restricted from housing. The United States of America doesn't even have any mitigating factors like, oh, we've shown remorse. So why should I take into consideration that this would bankrupt the nation when they have no consideration for what it has done to my people? I'm done with this letter. It's time to go to our next commercial break. When we come back from our commercial / musical break, depending on what station you're listening in on, we've got more Fan Mail Friday. And I would hope that somebody, I know you're not used to it, but I'm hoping somebody's going to call into the show. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a little bit of Jeffrey Osborne, Can You Woo Woo Woo? If you're tuned in on our radio stream, if you're tuned in on our live stream, our live video stream, we are going to go to a word from our sponsors. Either way, we'll be right back here. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. For those of you tuned in on the radio stream, we just played a little bit of Jeffrey Osborne, Can You Woo Woo Woo? And I got about 3 messages on the break that said, yo, man, you play that song like every day. Look, it's a funky song, man. I mean, look, I like the song. Anyway, welcome back. It is Fan Mail Friday. I'm going to go ahead and hop off of this fan letter talking about reparations. I think, we have exhausted every reasonable statement that can be made about that. Let's get on to another fan letter. And this fan letter comes to me from a fan who was not happy about what I said about the Civil War. I don't know exactly what story or what article they were responding to, but they seriously had some issue with something I said about the Civil War, and I have to address this. And I have to address this. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I have to address this. The only reason I actually picked this letter is because this man said something so stupid that I had to bring it to the world. And he is so lucky that I have a policy against not mentioning names. I really debated that policy today. And I decided that I was going to maintain my policy of not mentioning names, but I really wanted to embarrass this fool. He said, I'm going to read the whole letter before I even get into it. He said, I bet you think that the war was over black people. What did you do in school? You see, I didn't let school get in the way of my education. I'm sorry, guys. He said, I didn't let school get in the way of my education. I learned at a very... I'm sorry. I'm trying, guys. I'm really trying. He said, I didn't let school get in the way of my education. I learned at a very young age that school is a bad place. You have to be smart enough to learn what you need to know and ignore the rest. Oh, God. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying. I am trying to get through this. Bear with me. Be sure and look it up. But the bottom line is the war was totally over control. Just like today, the Union controls everything. The South wanted their sovereignty and independence. The Union couldn't survive under these conditions. Oh, my God. I read these letters, and then I realize how Donald Trump got elected. This is the classic argument. The Civil War wasn't fought over slavery. It was fought over states' rights. That is a convenient I'm not even going to say retelling, because it is an accurate statement. Well, it's accurate that the Civil War was fought over states' rights on paper. But you have to dig a little deeper. Just a little bit. For those of you that don't think that school is a place to get an education. God. The Confederacy seceded from the nation because they believed that their states' rights were being infringed upon. Yes. What was the stated right that the Confederates believed that they were being infringed upon? It was the right to own slaves. That was the only right that they ever expressed or documented that they felt was being infringed upon. So to sit here and say that the Civil War was not fought over slavery is disingenuous. It is a convenient way to try to get around the truth. The Civil War was fought because Southern states believed that they, not the federal government, had the right to decide whether or not they were allowed to own human beings. There was no other stated justification for this. None. They didn't say, oh, well, it's because you guys are taking up all the resources or anything like that. It was because they wanted to own human beings. Period. I challenge anybody out there who wants to debate that point to show me one Confederate document that was sent to the Union requesting any other right. Show me. Show me. This is an asinine concept. It's an easy way to sidestep the truth. And why do people continue to want to sidestep the truth? Because if you admit America's jacked up history, you have to admit to yourself, hey, my nation did something that damaged an entire group of people. And if you have any type of moral compass, you know that when you do something, this goes back to the original statement about reparations. If you have any type of moral compass, you know that when somebody messes something up, they should have to fix it. So if you sidestep that, then you don't have to deal with the issue. These are what I call mental acrobatics. You tell a part of history that's convenient for you and leave out the stuff that's not. Then he says, you see, I didn't let school get in the way of my education. Oh my God, you probably should have, because then maybe you could read a history book or two. These are the same type of people who listen to guys like Alex Jones and let him tell them that, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are literally demons from the pit of hell and they smell of sulfur and attract flies. And no, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not exaggerating. Alex Jones did say that. And he wasn't joking. These are the people who latch on to every conspiracy without any type of evidence. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, do I believe that conspiracies take place in the United States of America? Absolutely. I mean, all you got to do is look at the Tuskegee experiment to see that. But when I start talking about these conspiracies, I have evidence to back that up. These people hop on anything because they're so distrusting of the government that anything that's, and don't get it twisted, I do not trust the government. I want to be clear on that. But I require proof before I start forming opinions. This guy said, I'm out of school because I don't like what they got to say. School's not going to get in the way of me educating myself. So then he goes and he runs and he talks to these conspiracy theorists who run around here and tell you in one step that the school is lying to you and tell you in the next breath that the earth is still flat. The earth is flat. Dude, you haven't let school get in the way of your education. You have let knowledge get in the way of your education. You have been miseducated, dude. Said, I learned at a very young age that school is a bad place. It probably was a bad place for you because you don't sound too smart. I would love to see your report cards School is a bad place for you to be smart enough to learn. Listen, do they miseducate us in school? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are we taught things that are not true or are skewed? Of course. But here's the thing. You have to learn the baseline of information before you can start deviating. Before you can start finding out what's wrong with what you've learned, you first have to learn it. And then you have to analyze it and say what parts of this are true and what parts aren't. This guy is one of those guys that will just latch on to any alternative history. Remember, we're dealing in the world of alternative facts now. This guy just latched on to anything that was against the norm with no evidence to support it. As long as it was not what the government told him, it was fine. This is the type of guy that will walk outside and argue with you that the sky is purple. Because, and he's only saying that because the government told him it was blue. This is why research is so important, ladies and gentlemen. We've got too many people now who are landing on one extreme or the other, that nobody thinks anymore. Think. Jeez. Think. He said, be sure to look it up. I did. This is a topic I've been researching for decades. He said, but the bottom line is the war was totally over control. Absolutely. The Union wanted to control the states and tell them they could not own slaves. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, a government is about control. That's what they call laws. They are to control the people. By your thought process, you're advocating for anarchy. Yes, the states sometimes have to be controlled so that they don't get out of control. The states were out of control. He said, just like today, the Union controls everything. Newsflash, bro. Because I know you didn't want to go to school long enough. You didn't want to go to school long enough to learn this. You probably dropped out before you got to this chapter. The Union doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It doesn't exist. So for you to say that the Union controls everything, you sound a little crazy. We have a federal government now comprised of representatives from all 50 states. Did you not know that? Did you not know that your southern states have just as many senators as the northern states? Were you unaware of this? Were you unaware that you have equal representation in the Senate? Did you know that? Did you also know that 2 out of the last 3 presidents prior to Trump were from the South? Bill Clinton's from Arkansas. George W. Bush is from Texas. You guys have representation. And with representation means that you have equal control. But I know you didn't sit through 5th grade civics class reading, these things like the Constitution that show you how you have equal representation. Yeah. Just like today, the union controls everything. Yeah, the federal government controls everything, and your states are a part of it, you dummy. He goes on to say the South wanted their sovereignty and independence, and the Union could not survive under those conditions. What? What are you talking about? I love how he writes this, and he gives zero examples. None at all. Let me explain something to you, since you don't seem to understand well. Every state in this country specializes in some sort of product or service. This is what keeps our government operating. This is what keeps our financial and economic systems operating. You get coal from West Virginia that is brought into Pennsylvania and used to fire steel mills. The steel is then shipped to New York or Miami or all over the country to build buildings. You get Idaho, which grows potatoes that are eaten all over the country. Florida, which grows oranges that are eaten all over the country. In other words, every state has a symbiotic relationship with every other state, dummy. And that's correct. No states could survive, or at least not live in the manner that they are accustomed to, if it wasn't for every other state. And guess what? The United States of America has been like that since well before the Civil War. That's why they united as states to form America. You dumb moron. People this dumb are exactly why we have a guy like Donald Trump in the White House now. Because people this dumb and this zealous about their beliefs, they go out and vote. Oh, God help us, they go out and vote. I guess it's time for our next musical break. Good, because it gives me an opportunity to stop giggling, because I don't know if I can make it through the rest of this show. Let's go to a little bit of the OJs. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, it kills me that people are this stupid. We'll go to the OJs. If you're tuned in on our live video stream, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. Either way, we'll be right back here. Well, maybe we'll go to the OJs. We're having some technical difficulties. There we go. All right, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors or to the OJs, depending on where you're listening in. Either way, we'll be back. Stay tuned. Yes, yes, y'all. That is the OJ's I Love Music. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's hhnsradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I want to remind everybody once again, you can call in now. Skype is available. Just call into the Chamber Radio Show. We will do a video feed live with you all. We will be hooking up the phone lines next week, but you guys can call in now. This letter is a perfect example of exactly why we need to start educating people. And I don't even know if it would work with this guy, because this guy is just so far gone. I get distrust for the government. Of course I have distrust for the government. Of course I question everything that comes across my every piece of information I question. And that's healthy. That's healthy, and I get that. But you still have to apply some brain cells. And this guy clearly dropped out of school before he learned how to learn. Does that make any sense to anybody? He dropped out of school before he learned what intelligent thought was. He learned nothing. Oh, it looks like we got a call coming in. Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first time we're going to try the Skype, so let's see. Let's see. A caller, you are on the box with Andre Roxx. Hang on, let's see if we can get the video through. No, it is showing me. The video is showing me. That's all right, caller. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We're having a technical problem here, so you're not coming up on our screen. But what's going on? What's on your mind?
That's probably a good thing. I don't want to come on the screen. I just want to say what I have to say.
All right. Okay.
So I heard you earlier talking about, how Trump was saying that police officers or people that shoot police officers should be executed, right? Basically.
Right.
Okay. And you were saying that, you didn't agree with that, obviously, or whatever. And you were saying basically, if a cop is in front of me and he's hurting a black person, you feel like
not just a black person, any person, any person. I mean, obviously my first concern is to the community which I belong, but any if a police officer is harming anyone, it's my job as a man to defend my community.
Okay, I understand that, but do you feel like there are less evasive ways of diffusing the situation?
Well, let me ask you this. If a person has a gun pulled out and they're shooting at someone, what is the way to save that person's life without returning fire? I mean, I gave the example on the show earlier. We had the Amantic Bradford situation. So Amantic Bradford, literally, they started shooting at him, according to witnesses, milliseconds after they got on the scene. Not even a full second after they got on the scene. In that situation, how do you save your own life or save the life of someone that you love?
Well, sometimes I think about the fact that these men and women are putting their lives on the line every single day, and they're putting themselves in very dangerous situations. And I'm not saying this is right, but I feel like what needs to be looked into is different ways to combat maybe the fear that comes on people, because I feel like sometimes they get very fearful and just feel like they should just shoot. And another thing I feel like that should be looked into is a lot of times people don't understand the behaviors of different cultures. So what they may perceive as very aggressive, it may come off to them because of the way that other people behave.
Ah.
So maybe even training into understanding other people and the way they behave would be a way to get over the stigma or get over, discriminating against people of color.
Oh, so you said a few things there. So there's a lot to unpack in what you just said, and I agree with a lot of it. Not necessarily all of it, but let's unpack this. Let's start with the behaviors of police officers. It is their job to discern whether there's a dangerous situation or not. And it is not up to me as a civilian to train them. And as far as them being in dangerous situations, I love the fact that, you've got the police officers unions and things like that, and they continue to push this narrative that police officers are putting their lives on the line every day and all of this. Do you realize that there are jobs in the United States that are much more dangerous than police officers that we consider to be benign jobs, such as fishermen are at more risk of dying. Fishermen are at more risk of dying on the job than police officers. Farmers are at more risk of dying on the job than police officers. Construction workers are at more risk of dying on the job. They like to push this narrative of them being in the line of fire every day so that they can, justify these heinous actions because they can say, well, we're under a lot of stress and under a lot of pressure. The average police officer will never have to pull his gun in his career. So that narrative is being pushed a lot by the Fraternal Order of Police and other police unions, but it's just not accurate when you start looking at the numbers. And I'm one of these guys. I look at the numbers before I look at the bravado and the stigmas and things like that. As far as the training, I agree. There needs to be more cultural training. I think that there needs to be more deprogramming because I believe that Americans have been programmed, black Americans and white Americans have been programmed to view African Americans and Latino Americans as more hostile than our white counterparts. So actions that we take, if a white person took those same actions, would not be viewed as aggressive. That being said, again, these people have life and death in their hands. And if they are not trained properly to discern that, in those moments, people of color, or for that matter, anybody who is being attacked, really doesn't have many options except for to retaliate. My statements are dealing with police in the moment of the attack. And in the moment of the attack, there aren't many options. That officer has already decided that they are going to attack. And they're going to move forward. I'm having some problems hearing you, caller. I believe you got us on mute.
I'm still listening. You were just talking, so I didn't.
I know I have a tendency to do that a lot. That's why they put a microphone in front of me, because I talk a lot.
Well, I do want to go back to what you were saying about, them pushing a narrative of them not being put into dangerous situations. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know for sure, how risky it is versus one job versus the other, but I do think that it has to be put into consideration.
Well, the numbers just don't bear that out. The numbers just don't.
Well, these people are choosing to put themselves and their lives on the line, and their families are sacrificing them
and
the risk that they take for the protection of the community.
And that's a good point. First of all, like I said, the numbers just don't bear out that police work is that dangerous of a job. The numbers just don't bear that out. They can say it all day long, but when you start talking about facts and statistics, now you've got real information. But I love the point that you just made. Is let's say it was a very dangerous job, and these are the stressors that they try to use as a factor in justifying their heinous crimes. They, as you said, they chose that job. So I love the fact that you pointed that out. That is an excellent point. Is they chose to basically take on that stress. Now, if you choose a job, just like I chose to be on the radio, and there are certain rules and regulations. If I use profanity on the air right now, I get a $10,000 fine. Okay, I have to deal with the consequences of any action that I take because I chose this job. If they choose that job of being in a position where they're going to be under fire, if they are under fire, which the numbers don't bear that out, but if they choose that job, then you also have to understand, yes, you chose to take on that stressful position. So that doesn't justify you losing your mind and shooting me. If you can't handle that job, then don't take on the job. We are running low on time, caller. I hope you'll call back in, but we got to run. I got to do my final thoughts here. It was a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Guys, remember, the call-in lines are open now. I know that you guys are not used to it, but the call-in lines are open now. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for my final thoughts here on the chamber. I don't think we got the final thoughts graphics up, but that's all right. We're going to go to them anyway. Final thoughts are real simple. Facts. Everything that we talked about today are simply people who want to dismiss fact for emotion. You got the guy who wants to say all schools are lying about everything and tries to, because he doesn't like, I don't know what happened in his life, but he doesn't like something that happened in school. So he says all schools are bad and they're telling you all kinds of BS. So anything that he gets told that's not the traditional educational narrative, he believes without questioning. Not to say that the traditional educational narrative is always right, because yes, they do teach us a lot of BS. But to discern the BS from reality, you have to educate yourself. The narrative that the police are pushing, that their jobs are so dangerous and that we should respect them more because of it. Show us the facts and figures. It's nice to say that, and I know it's an easy thing to push because that's what they show on TV. You know, they show the Law and Order SVU where Elliot and Olivia are running down every day and they're getting shot at every day and all of that. But that's not what police work really is. And the numbers don't bear that out. But they want you to dismiss the fact and go off of the emotion. This is how I feel. This is how I think. But when the facts come into play, oh, it's a different story. When we find out that it's more dangerous to be a fisherman than to be a cop. That whole mitigating circumstances, and I'm so stressed that I shot a guy and I should be given leniency, that kind of goes out the window. When people write in and they talk about how slavery was a fallacy, again, they talk about how the Irish were slaves. That's, again, emotional. They don't want to actually research. As a matter of fact, the Irish Historical Society wrote an open letter telling people, stop pushing that false narrative. But see, if you don't have to admit what the United States did to blacks, if you say, hey, they did it to everybody, and everybody came out fine, then you can try and move on and say, oh, well, you know, blacks shouldn't be paid for their rendered services because, you know, everybody got screwed. A lot of people got screwed. It removes that weight of guilt. Guilt is an emotion. So if you can remove that emotion, then you can move on with your life and not worry about it. We have to stop operating on emotion and start operating on facts. Statements like "I feel" don't trump "these are the numbers." Statements like "I don't like" do not trump "these are the facts." Ladies and gentlemen, that's my show. I want to thank everybody out there for inviting me into your home, into your vehicle, onto your laptop, your cell phone, your tablet computer, your AM and FM dials, your YouTube, your Facebook, however you're listening to me today. I want to thank you for inviting me into your eardrums. It is always an honor and a privilege to have my voice heard, to have my opinion taken into consideration. Even if you disagree with everything I just said, I still appreciate you taking the time to hear me out. As always, y'all, remember, we don't have to like each other, but God said we should love each other. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. Till next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.